Welcome to today's explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me because we're going to do something incredibly practical today. We're going to master the foundational rules of the French language. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by learning a new language, and let's be honest, we all have, we're going to break it down step by step. By the time we finish up here, you are going to be amazed at how much sense it all makes. Okay, listen to this. Tu as un neveu ou une nièce. That translates to you have a nephew or a niece. Now, if you're brand new to French, that probably looks like an intimidating, jumbled string of words, right? You might be wondering about those little filler words like ah and un, or how to even pronounce them. Well, hold on to this sentence. My promise to you is that by the end of our time together today, you're going to know exactly how to build this exact phrase from absolute scratch. So here's a bird's eye view of the source material we're working with today. It's a standard Unit 3 guidebook covering some grammar tips and key phrases. But listen, we aren't just going to blindly memorize this list. That doesn't work. Instead, we're working from the bottom up. We're going to extract the core grammar rules, understand the real logic behind them, and then use those rules to literally decode the conversational phrases. We're building our language skills layer by layer. All right, section 1. The verb avoir, which means to have. Let's dive right into this. Everything in language starts with verbs. They're the action engines of our sentences. And a really vital tip here is that the French language relies heavily on the specific verb avoir to state family relationships. It translates directly to have. The rule is beautifully simple. In French, you literally state that you have a family member to establish that relationship. Let's see this engine actually running. J'ai un fils. This translates perfectly to I have a son. That j'ai right at the beginning, pronounced a bit like j'ai, is our verb avoir, combined with the pronoun for I. Just like that, boom, you have the foundational structure for introducing literally anyone in your family tree. Moving on to section 2, gendered family nouns, masculine versus feminine. So we know how to say we have someone, but now we actually need the words for the family members themselves. And this brings us to what is basically the bread and butter of French grammar, gendered nouns. These two little words, un and une, both translate to a or an in English. But French assigns a gender to its family nouns. You use un for males and une for females. Now, a quick heads up, mixing these up is a classic beginner trap. But mastering this tiny spelling and pronunciation difference, it has a massive impact on your fluency. Let's actually look at how these pair up in practice. For a son, it's un fils, but for a daughter, it shifts to une fille. A brother is un frère, while a sister is une sœur. An uncle is un oncle, and an aunt is une tante. And finally, a nephew is un neveu, while a niece is une nièce. Listen closely to how the masculine un and the feminine une perfectly match the gender of the specific family member being discussed. It's like puzzle pieces snapping together. So here is your golden rule, directly from the guidebook. Family nouns referring to males use un, while those referring to females use une. Guys, this isn't just a casual suggestion. This is the architectural framework of the French sentence. Nailing this concept completely unlocks almost all basic family vocabulary for you. Okay, let's pivot for just a quick second. Elle vient de Paris ou de Lyon? Meaning, is she from Paris or Lyon? Think about it. When we talk about ourselves or our family members, we almost always mention where we live, right? That means we absolutely need to understand the basic rules for geography in French. Which brings us to section 3, using a with cities for location and direction. I love this because it's a wonderfully straightforward rule. You just use the little preposition a directly before city names. And the best part? It serves a dual function. Depending entirely on the context of the sentence, a can mean either in or to. It is basically your universal key for connecting an action to any specific city. Let me give you an example. Il habite à Paris. This simply translates to he lives in Paris. Notice how the a acts as this perfect little bridge between the verb habite, which, by the way, has a silent h at the start, and the city Paris. Without it, the whole sentence just falls apart. But with it, you can smoothly talk about residing in literally any city in the world. All right, section 4, key phrases in action. Let's put it all together. This is where understanding the rules becomes incredibly powerful.
We can now combine our isolated rules to decode full, real-life conversations. First up, j'ai une fille. I have a daughter. There is our verb avoir working perfectly in tandem with the feminine une. Second, oui, j'ai une sœur. Yes, I have a sister. And third, getting slightly more complex now, j'ai un frère et une sœur. I have a brother and a sister. Notice how the speaker seamlessly transitions from the masculine un to the feminine une, all anchored by that single starting verb, j'ai.
And wow, look at this. That brings us right back around to our opening hook. Tu as un neveu ou une nièce? You have a nephew or a niece? I bet it doesn't look so intimidating anymore, does it? Tu as is simply another form of our core verb avoir. Un neveu is masculine, and une nièce is feminine. You can now effortlessly read and understand the underlying framework here because you literally just built it yourself. Just take a step back and look at what you've accomplished here. What started out as just a random list of French phrases has now become a fully decoded map. You can confidently navigate every single sentence on this page because you actually understand the foundational architecture behind it. You've moved from isolated textbook grammar tips straight into real conversational fluency. So I'm going to leave you with this final exciting thought. Now that you have these incredibly powerful building blocks, you've got the verb avoir, you've got the gendered nouns un and une, and you have the geographical connector a, who are you going to introduce first? The tools are right there in your hands now. Go out and start building your own French sentences today. Thank you so much for exploring this material with me, and keep actively learning.